At Enjoy Church, you'll share in a worship experience with people from all walks of life. Hear powerful, high-energy music. Get great, practical, real-life teaching from Pastor Daren Carstens. And we have age-appropriate teaching for your entire family. Come join us on Sundays in Collinsville at the Gateway Center at 10:25 a.m. or at our Alton campus on Saturdays at 5 p.m., Sundays at 9:15 and 11:35 a.m., and Wednesday nights at 7:05 p.m. Come see why Enjoy Church is a place for everyone, including you. For directions, visit our website, enjoychurch.tv.
I want you to know something in your life. True satisfaction and true life fulfillment comes from the relationships that you and I have with one another. First of all, a great relationship with God, but then secondly, to have a great, awesome, intimate relationship with God through people. Because people are near and dear to the heart of God. People are what matters most to God. And if you want to love God, express your love to God through loving people and having great relationships and great friendships. A lot of people are naive. What is it that keeps us from having great relationships? Well, one is being naive, not knowing how important they really are to us, not knowing that you can't be successful. You can't have a radical, ridiculous year of great results without radically great relationships. You've got to know that. And the truth is some of us are naive. We just don't know that. It reminds me of the guy in the Progressive commercial that thinks he's got it. You know, you tell the Lord, I got it. I don't need people. I can live my life as an island. I got it. I'm fine. I'm got it. You know, the one guy's juggling chainsaws. And the other guy steps up. Give me one. Give me one. I got this. I got this. Give me one. Have you seen that one? I love that commercial. And it reminds me of anyone who thinks that they can do life by themselves without people. Listen, you may not need someone today, but you will tomorrow. Yes. Great relationships come into play, and it's great when we're on the mountaintops to have people who can celebrate with us. And that's awesome. But it's also great to have people with you when you go through the valleys of life, when you're hurting and when things break. To have someone there to encourage you, to love you, to say, hey, you're going to be okay. You're going to make this. It's going to be fine. Great relationships are important, and don't be naive about it. You need them. I need them. We all need them. Yeah. The other thing that keeps some of us from having great relationships is our temperament. Some of us maybe are shy, or we're timid, or maybe, you know, we've messed up other relationships because of our anger or because of our temper or whatever, and so maybe we've pulled back a little bit and we're a little bit reserved. Maybe that keeps us from doing it. Or another one could be that some of us are afraid of relationships. Maybe you're new to church. Maybe you're new to Christianity and you've heard things about Christians and you're like, you know those Christians, right? You know those Christians, they're weird. Church people are strange. And so, you know, you may be afraid and you're like, man, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe in a big environment like this, it's easy to be anonymous, but to get involved intimately and develop those relationships, maybe that's a little bit scary for you. Yeah. Let me tell you how our small groups work, just so you'll know, bring some peace to you, okay? So clear the fog away, take away the lies of the enemy. Our small groups are like this. We have about 12 to 15 chairs. We put them in a circle. Your first visit to the group, we put a chair in the middle. You sit in that chair. I don't know what's so funny about that. When you sit in that chair, we ask you to confess all of your sins you committed the week before. Yes, and then we lay hands on your head and we cast all the devils out of you. And then we take you into the kitchen. And in the kitchen, we have Kool-Aid. Does this confirm your suspicions about Christians, right? I am being so facetious and so sarcastic, and aren't you glad that I am? Yeah. Let me tell you what our small groups are really like. You go in, you attend one, you can attend it, just be there. You don't have to participate, you can listen in, be there. But let me tell you what's going to happen in one of our small groups, whether it's a task group that we work together, or whether it's a Bible study, a small group, or whether it's a workshop. You're going to have what I call a Me Too moment. Now, Me Too moments are life-changing. You've heard the phrase before, misery loves company. Well, let me tell you what a Me Too moment is. People have this misconception that church people have it all together and that all you church people are perfect little angels and you never do anything wrong. And if you guys knew what I did yesterday or the week before, you'd kick me out of this church so fast. But that's not really the way that it is. Church people have issues. Because church people are people. And people are people everywhere you go. People are people at Walmart, people are people at Schnucks, people are people at the restaurant, at the bar, wherever you go, people are people. So wherever people are, there are people, and people have issues. And if you think you don't have an issue, that's your issue. You got an issue. So what I'm here to do is to tell you that in our groups, whether you serve and get involved that way or you attend a small group, a Bible study, whatever group you get involved in, when you commit and you connect and you get involved, you're going to eventually have a Me Too moment. Me Too moments are incredible because you think everybody's got it all together except you, and you're going to have a Me Too moment where someone says, you know, I'm struggling because I am still struggling with this addiction, or I'm going through this relationship problem, or I went through a divorce, or I had a bankruptcy, or my business failed, and I'm dealing with this depression, or whatever it is. You're going to have a Me Too moment. You're going to go, really? C.S. Lewis, how many of you like to read? C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis said this. He said, the beginning of great friendships begin at the moment of a Me Too moment, when two people come together under a common struggle. Right. And when you are able to say, hey, I've been through that. I went through that 5 years ago. I went through that 15 years ago, and today I'm successful, or today I've made it through. Or maybe it's, hey, I'm going through it right now too. Yeah. Something awesome happens when you and I have Me Too moments with one another. Yeah. And that is one of the things I love about Enjoy Church, the culture, the environment, that we are inclusive, that we all are not walking around with facades and with plastic masks on, acting like we've got it all together when, hey, the truth is we've all been around long enough to know we don't all have it all together. That's called hypocrisy. That's why we get a bad reputation as the church when we try to act like we've got it all together. And then we somehow end up taking pride in our flesh when we do this area right. But I want you to know, you may have this area right, but you are totally jacked up in this area. And the Me Too moment is when we all take our mask off and say, you know what? We're all people, and we're all going somewhere, and God loves us, and God has a plan for us. Come on and go with us. Let's go. Let's achieve. So maybe it's fear. Maybe it's your past experiences. Maybe you grew up in a religious environment where people judged you, criticized you, condemned you, and what you've ended up doing is putting up a wall between you and them. It's a glass wall. They can see you, you can see them, but no one can get into your heart, because you keep people at a distance. Maybe it's that. Or maybe it's this one. Maybe you're just so busy. How many of you this morning, you woke up and you looked up, husbands, you looked over at your wives, or wives, you looked over at your husband and you said, honey, you know what we need for satisfaction and fulfillment in our life? Is 3 more meetings we could attend this week. You know, we're just not busy enough. We need some more to do. Yeah, we need some more to do. We need our to-do list bigger. It's just we don't have anything to do. How many of you did that? Could I see a hand in this place? No, nobody did that, did they? You did not do that. You probably will never do that, because we live in the most overwhelming, busy society in the history of the world. Our to-do list is growing larger than the national deficit. I mean, it's big, isn't it? But here's the promise, that when you make a commitment to the most important relationships in your life, even though you're busy, I know we're busy, but when you say yes to the right things, great things are down the road for you. So let me give you a few things that you can do. I want to read a verse to you that will help you. This will help take you into a year of success, a year of radical, ridiculous results this year. How do you get success? You have to focus on radical connectivity, to connect with people, the right people, and the right way. 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7 says this, "In the end of all things is near." How many of you would agree, if you know Bible prophecy, if you know the Bible at all, man, we are living in the last days. If Peter wrote this over 2,000 years ago, and he did, and he was saying we were near the last days 2,000 years ago, how much more are the last days here today? There are so many Bible prophecies and Bible situations that are met, the conditions really, there aren't any really unleft that, well, I mean, we've met 99.999% of them. Jesus literally could call his church home today. It could happen, guys. We're living in the last days. So here's the cool thing. The book of Acts says that God actually picked you, the continent you would live, the time and the season and the day and the century that he would pick you to be lived in. You know what that means for you and me? Is that God trusted you and chose you and picked you to live during this century, during this time. He entrusted to you, he gave you as a gift the end times responsibility to do your part, to live your role, to fulfill your destiny. You are not an accident. You are here by design, God's plan. He has a plan for you. He loves you. This is exciting. When this makes sense to you, then it makes sense what Peter says to do. Okay, now that we know that, are we living in the last days? Probably so. It sure seems like it. The end of all things is near. Therefore, be clear-minded and self-controlled. What did we talk about last week? Self-control, willpower, grit, self-discipline, the ability to dig in and commit no matter what your emotions and feelings say. Grit power, come on, grit power. Have you got it today? I preached it last week. Hopefully you got some left over. Everybody got grit power? Grit power. Grit power means I won't quit. I'm committed. I will grit this thing out if I have to. Now, then when the feelings are there, whoo, they're fun. Enjoy them. But when the feelings aren't there, I'll grit this out for a day or two or a month or two or a year or two or a decade or two if I have to. He says, be self-controlled so that you can pray above all. Above all. Above all means highest priority, most important. Above all, love each other deeply. Why? Why do we do that? Because it's the last days. He says, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sin. Now, we all mess up and we all sin. We have to cover over each other's sins. Yes. I've got to cover over some sins right now that I just found out about. I've got to cover over some sins. Do you think I want to cover over those sins? No, I don't. But let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover over the sins. And I'll pull them aside and I'll correct them in love and help them. And I won't expose them to the world. I'll love them. But you got to cover over. Why? Because people are what matters most to God. Amen. Each one, he goes on, he says, offer hospitality to each other without grumbling. Each one should use whatever gift he has received to serve others. Wait a minute. Here's what we know about you. God picked you and God chose you to live in this day and in this hour. Some of you are artistic. Some of you are organized. Some of you are communicators, connectors. Some of you do this, do that. Whatever gift God has given you, use that gift to serve other people because it is the last days. He says, if any of you speak, you should do it as one speaking the very words of God. If anyone serves, he should do it with the strength that God provides so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. So how does this play out? Well, we know it's the end times. We know we're living there. I mean, all you have to do is look at what's going on with Israel right now. Do you know Israel just became a nation again? And they were not a nation 70 years after Jesus' death. Israel was not a nation. And then in the 1940s, they became a nation. The 1940s are not that long ago. Some of you were born before that. Wasn't that long ago. And we're watching all this play out on the world stage. If you notice what John Kerry did with the European nation and boycotting Israel right now, we're watching Bible prophecy unfold right before our very eyes, you guys. So here's what I want to say. Don't dabble with this day and this hour that we live in. Let's go all in, savagely all in to the time of the day and the hour that we have to live in right now. This is an incredible opportunity to be who God says that we can be. So what do? You have to make some decisions. In order for things to change, things have to change. Thank you. How do things change? Things change when decisions are made. So what I'm really talking about here is some decisions being made. If you wait for things to just happen, life will throw you all around, to and fro like a storm. You have to decide with resolve, with commitment, with feet anchored. This is where I drive my stake in the ground. This is what I'm committed to. You have to make that type of a decision, that type of a commitment in order to go into the destiny that God has for you. So number one, you have to make a commitment to serve and nurture the most important relationships in your life. What are the most important? Well, for most of us, we have about 4 or 5 of them. One of the most important relationships in my life is I am a husband. I'm a husband. Another one is I'm a father. Those are 2 real important. A third one is I'm a pastor. I'm your pastor. You're important to me. I've got to commit to you, nurture you, nurture my marriage, nurture my children. Nurture means this: throw a log on the fire. Yeah. So what am I saying? We're practicing what we're teaching here. Yes. When you need God to do something, you commit to your relationships. You just do. Put that priority out there. I believe that God will play catch up with us, yes. Right? Yes, He will. I believe that. There's something that happens when we nurture our important relationships. So put a log on the fire, and feed your marriage, feed your children, nurture them, nurture all of those good relationships in your life. Number 2, restore broken relationships. Some of us have relationships where someone has offended us. And here's what I know: hurting people hurt people, and just plain old people hurt people because we're all human. Yeah. This past week, I was with my son, Joel. He's 20 years old. And he says to me, Dad, how much of your sermon do you just let fly off the cuff? He knows some of it is just comes out. How much of it? I said, Joel, I've not really thought about how much of it, because I do prepare. I really spend a lot of time preparing. But then every time I get up here, God just starts I'm at least giving him credit for it. It's probably, some of it's probably him. If it's bad, it's not him, it's me. Okay. So I'll get up here and I'll start sharing some stuff. I said, Joel, I guess it's probably somewhere between 30 and 40% of what I share is flies out. And I said, that's what makes it either really good or really risky. Because I've said stuff before that I go home, I'm going, oh, Jesus. Oh, Laura, do you think anybody's going to come back to church next week? But what I want you to know is people hurt people accidentally, some on purpose. Yeah. And when it comes to forgiveness, never allow a root of bitterness to grow down into your heart. Forgive people, and maybe not even as much for their sake as it is for your sake, because it's in forgiving them, releasing them, and letting their offense go that you grow, and that there's nothing holding you back from receiving God's blessing. Yeah. So I encourage you to do that. Do that sooner than later. Romans chapter 12 says, as far as it's concerned with you, live at peace with everyone. Just do your best. Some people will hate you no matter what. The haters are just out there. But as far as you're concerned, just be at peace with them and love them and assume the best for them. I heard this story this past week about a couple who had just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. And they were having a celebration. And one of the granddaughters said to Grandma, Grandma, how is it that you and Grandpa have stayed married for 50 years? And it seems like you guys love each other so much. And she says, oh, sweetheart, that is so easy. She said, let me tell you what I did with your grandpa. When we were dating, she said, I made a list of his top 10 things that drove me crazy about him. I made that list, she said, and every time he'd commit one of those offenses against me or do something stupid, she said, I just remember, boy, it's a good thing that's in that list, the top 10. And about that time, grandson speaks up. He said, Grandma, will you tell us what Grandpa's top 10 things are? And Grandma said, well, that's the funny thing about this. This is probably the reason this has worked so well for us. She said, you know, I never really made the list. She said, it's just that every time Grandpa would offend me, and that was all the time. She said, I'd look back at him and I'd say, you know what, lucky for you, buddy. That thing you just did is in that list of top 10 things. And she said, I always just assumed that whatever he did was in that list, that would be on it. And that kept my heart clear towards your pawpaw. And I want to say to you that if you'll just have a top 10 and whatever happens, you put it on that list and just say, you know what, good for you. That was in that top 10. Yeah. That's good. I'm going to let that go. I forgive you. Your life will be so much better. Yes. Listen, guys, I'm talking to you about how to have radical, ridiculous results this year. Yes. And if you are going to have radical, ridiculous results, you're going to have radical, ridiculously great relationships. And these things have to happen. The third one is this. You may need to go in sync on a few of your relationships. That means, in sync, bye, baby. Bye. That means if your life is going to be great, hey, think about this principle. You've got to cut some of those relationships off. And I'm not talking about being, we love everybody. We include everybody. But we don't do life with everybody. Where I'm talking about communion, common union, where we are in common union, where we're going the same direction. The Bible is very clear. I used to be a youth pastor before I was a senior pastor. I pastored youth, and this is not the exception. This is the rule that without exception, you could take a kid and show me his friendships, and I'll show you his future. Yeah. If you take the average 5 friendships, and I'm not talking about just like pick 5 average friends. I'm talking about picking the 5 best friends, the people that if something bad happens, they call. The people that if something good happens, they call. The people that if you want to go do something fun with, the ones you call. The top 5, okay? Give me your top 5 teenager. Show me what addictions they have, what emotional habits they have, good or bad, what study habits they have, what recreation habits they have, what language they use to speak with, and I will show you a mirror of your teenager because they are going to be the average of those top 5 relationships. I've watched, being a youth pastor, being a dad, I've watched kids, good kids, kids that are talented, kids that have potential, hook up with and connect with kids who have no goals, no values, who have some strange addictions, some sexual promiscuity going on in their life, and I've watched good kids go bad. It's not that they're bad people, it's just that they get friendships always drag you down. But here's what I know being a pastor. We can all say amen to our teenagers, but those principles work the same for you and the same for me. Yes. Show me your top 5 friendships. Are they gossipy? Well, the byproduct of being friends with gossipy people is that you'll have a lying problem. Where'd that come from? That's what the Bible says. You're friends with gossips. The byproduct of that is you have truth issues. So we could go down the road. I'm not stepping on your feet today. Feels like it maybe, but I'm not. I'm here to help you have a great year this year. Pick those relationships on purpose and with intention. Proverbs 27:19 says it this way, a mirror reflects the man's face, but what a man really is is like is shown by the kind of friends that he chooses. The problem is most of us don't choose our friends. Most of us let our friendships happen organically, and the enemy will make sure to play the heartstrings to try to connect us with the wrong people. Proverbs 13:20, he who walks with the wise will grow wise, but a companion of fools will suffer. 2 Corinthians 6:14, don't be yoked together. If you don't have it by these 3 verses, I'll pray for you. Don't be yoked together with unbelievers. The word yoke is the word that we use for communion, common union. It means to do life with hands together like this. I am yours and you are mine. Don't be yoked together with unbelievers, because what fellowship does righteousness have with wickedness and light with darkness? What I'm really saying to you is this: you need to choose your relationships on purpose. And number 4, be intentional about your relationships. Be intentional. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25 says, let's not give up meeting together, guys, as some are in the habit of doing, but let's encourage each other all the more as the day. That's a capital D. If you look in your notes, it's a capital D. That means the day. That means the day. The day of what? The day of judgment. The day approaches, and it's coming fast. The same thing Peter was saying. Since we're in this day, since we're in this hour, since it's wrapping up, and since God chose us to live in this day and this hour, let's not give up our small group meetings, our big church attendance meetings, our volunteer meetings, our mission and our task groups. Let's meet all the more. Let's do all the more because of the responsibility that we've got. Let's do more than we've ever done before.
That was an amazing message, and I know you'll want a free copy on DVD. Just go to our website at enjoychurch.tv or call the number on your screen. We'd love for you to come out and join us here at Enjoy Church. There's so many awesome things happening, and we also have an exciting online campus that we would love for you to check out. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
At Enjoy Church, you'll share in a worship experience with people from all walks of life. Hear powerful, high-energy music. Get great, practical, real-life teaching from Pastor Daren Carstens. And we have age-appropriate teaching for your entire family. Come join us on Sundays in Collinsville at the Gateway Center at 10:25 a.m. or at our Alton campus on Saturdays at 5 p.m., Sundays at 9:15 and 11:35 a.m., and Wednesday nights at 7:05 p.m. Come see why Enjoy Church is a place for everyone, including you. For directions, visit our website, enjoychurch.tv.